She threw my birthday gift in the trash, right in front of me. She thought I would stay silent. But what I did next broke her entire world. My name is Helen. I'm 62 years old, and I never, ever imagined the day would come when my own daughter-in-law would humiliate me in the most heartbreaking way possible. It all happened on the evening of my birthday. I had spent the entire week knitting a warm, cozy sweater for my grandson Liam. Every stitch was filled with love, every thread woven with happy memories and good wishes for him. I may not be rich, my pension barely covers the essentials, but I've always believed that the most valuable gifts are the ones made with your own hands, with all your heart poured into them. So there I was, walking into the living room, a hopeful smile on my face. My son, David, and his wife Emma were on the sofa, scrolling through their phones. The room was filled with the glow of the television. I held out the neatly wrapped gift to Emma, feeling a little flutter of excitement. "This is for Liam," I said softly. "I made it for him." Emma took the package. She opened it, looked at the little sweater inside, and then she rolled her eyes. A look of pure disgust crossed her face. "This," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, loud enough for the whole world to hear. "This cheap junk." Before I could even find my voice, before a single word of defense or explanation could leave my lips, she did it. She stood up, walked over to the kitchen bin, and tossed the sweater I had spent a week making straight into the trash can, right in front of me. It landed on top of some old coffee grounds and vegetable peels. I just stood there, frozen. My son, my own son, David, he just stood there silently. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at me. He just stared at the floor, as if he hadn't seen a thing. In that single, deafening moment of silence, my heart didn't just break. It shattered into a million tiny, sharp pieces. I felt small, unwanted, humiliated, invisible. The warmth I'd felt just moments before was gone, replaced by an icy cold that seeped into my bones. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I was lying in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, when I overheard Emma on the phone, talking to one of her friends. Her voice was a low whisper, but the words were as sharp as glass. "She keeps bringing her cheap handmade stuff over," she complained. "It's so embarrassing. We don't need old people gifts. Honestly, she just needs to stop coming here so often. Old people gifts. Cheap junk." The words echoed in my head, over and over again. I crept out of the room and sat in the dark living room, the moonlight casting long shadows on the floor, and I cried. I cried silently, so I wouldn't wake them. I wasn't crying because of the sweater. I could knit 100 more sweaters. I was crying because of how easily she had thrown away my love, my effort, my very essence, as if it were nothing more than garbage. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't storm into their room to demand an apology. What was the point? They had already shown me my worth in their eyes. At 5 a.m., while the sky was still a dark, inky blue, I quietly packed a small bag. My hands were steady. My decision was clear. I took a piece of paper and a pen from the kitchen counter and left a short, simple note on the table. "You, Don T., need to worry about my gifts anymore." Then, I slipped out of the house, closing the door behind me with a soft click. I walked to the bus station and bought a one-way ticket to a place I'd only seen on a postcard, a small, quiet countryside town a few hours away. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay where I wasn't wanted. I arrived in the little town and found a tiny, charming room for rent above a flower shop. The shop owner, a wonderful woman named Mrs. Parker, was kind, warm, and her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. She treated me with a respect I hadn't felt in years. She didn't see an old burden. She saw a person. To keep myself busy, I started helping her in the shop. I'd arrange bouquets in the mornings, the scent of fresh roses and lilies filling the air. It was therapeutic. And something wonderful started to happen. People in the town, they talked to me. The kids who came in with their mothers would smile at me. My new neighbors invited me over for tea. For the first time in so long, I felt valued. I felt seen. I felt alive again. To fill my evenings, I started knitting again. Not for anyone in particular, just for the joy of it. I made scarves, hats, and little blankets. And then, something completely unexpected happened. One day, a customer in the flower shop, a woman who owned a chic boutique downtown, saw a scarf I'd made for Mrs. Parker. She absolutely loved it. She touched the fabric, admired the intricate pattern, and asked where she could buy one. Mrs. Parker pointed to me. The boutique owner's eyes lit up. She offered to sell my knitted items in her shop. My so-called cheap junk was about to be put on display. And guess what? It was an instant hit. The items she called handmade art sold out every single week. Customers started placing custom orders, requesting specific colors and designs. People praised my work. They would stop me on the street to tell me how much they loved the hat their daughter wore, or the blanket they bought for a newborn. My confidence, which had been trampled and thrown in the trash, began to return. I was no longer old. I was no longer a burden. I was a creator, an artisan. I was someone with worth. Meanwhile, back at my son's house, a different story was unfolding. When they woke up that morning and found my note, panic broke loose. They called my phone, but I didn't answer. They called my old neighbors, the police, local hospitals. They searched everywhere they could think of. The silence they had given me was now replaced by their own frantic, desperate calls into the void. According to Mrs. Parker, who later heard the story, my son cried uncontrollably. The reality of my absence hit him like a physical blow. And Emma was crushed by a weight of guilt so heavy she could barely breathe. My God, what have I done? She apparently whispered to herself again and again, wandering through the house that now felt empty. The woman she had called cheap was suddenly the most precious person in the world, the one she desperately wanted back. It was on the 4th day of my new life. I was in the shop, humming to myself as I carefully arranged a vase of white lilies, when the little bell above the door chimed. I looked up, and there they were, my son David and Emma. My son's eyes were red and swollen from crying. Emma's hands were trembling so much, she had them clasped tightly in front of her. The moment she saw me, her face crumpled. She walked towards me, her steps uncertain, and then she fell to her knees right there on the floor of the flower shop. "Helen, I'm so sorry," she choked out, tears streaming down her face. Please forgive me. I was awful and cruel, and I don't deserve it, but please, forgive me." My son rushed forward and hugged me, clinging to me so tightly, crying like he did when he was a little boy who had fallen and scraped his knee. "Mom, we were so wrong. We didn't value you. We didn't appreciate your love. We took you for granted. Please come home," he whispered into my shoulder, his voice thick with regret. The whole shop went silent. Mrs. Parker stood by the counter, watching quietly. I looked down at Emma, still kneeling on the floor, and then at my son, whose tears were soaking my cardigan. I felt a sense of peace, not of anger. I placed my hand gently on Emma's shoulder. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. Holding on to anger only hurts yourself. But I want to come back to a home where my love is treated like trash. They didn't argue. They understood. Now, they visit me every weekend in my little town. Emma respects me. She listens to me. She even helps me with my knitting orders, her fingers fumbling with the needles as she learns a new kind of patience. She learned a painful but incredibly important lesson. Respect for your elders isn't optional. Kindness is not a currency. And love, especially the kind that is handmade, is never, ever cheap. And me, I'm finally living my own peaceful, beautiful life. I'm surrounded by blooming flowers, good friends, and a community that appreciates the love and care I put into everything I do. It took a moment of profound disrespect to show me my own strength, and to lead me to a place where I am truly cherished. Never underestimate the value of someone. You might only realize what you had when you face the terrifying possibility of losing them forever. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to follow for more.